leaning in with curiosity and fascination is always a better route than leaning in with judgment and assumption. So even for the people that are constantly negative, if I make a social post and someone writes something disparaging on the social post, I take a deep breath and go, you know what? I don't know what's going on in their world right now. I don't know what triggered that. I know it's not my post that they're upset about. It's something inside of them. And I have compassion for anybody that's hurting or struggling. So it really doesn't bother me.
Hey. Hey, everybody. Welcome to the most wonderful real estate podcast ever. I'm your host, Dwan Twyford. I'm America's most sought after real estate investor. And I have such a great guest for you today. As you can see, it is a man. So this is today's wicked smart man. And we're going to talk to Alan Stein Jr. here in just a minute. But I just want to let you know a couple of things. The motto at Dwanderful is people before profits. So if that's something that resonates with you, you're at the right place. I'm your girl. This your guy. This is what we're all about. And go to Dwanderful, DWANDERFUL, Dwanderful.com. Opt in. I've got some free ebooks for you. I've got a free real estate lingo training program, whole bunch of free stuff, but you just have to go over there and you have to go get it. So that being said, Alan, how are you today?
I'm fantastic. I'm excited to be with you. And I love the overarching mantra of people before profits. In fact, I think if you're good to people, that will always yield higher profits anyway.
I agree. If you just, as a real estate investor, it's really easy. I mean, it's so easy to be all about the money and, you're dealing with people in distress and you could so easily just take advantage of people, just so many things. It's like, you don't need to be that way. Just make the people happy, make it a win-win for them and the money will come.
Absolutely. Well said.
I'm a big believer in that the money will come. All right, so I love your background. I see a lot of sports stuff back there. So I'm going to assume you're a sports fan.
Yes, and
player.
I'm a former basketball performance coach. So the career I had before my current career as a keynote speaker and author was in the basketball training space. So I had an opportunity to work with some pretty renowned and elite level players and coaches, and I was able to absorb a ton of wisdom from them and really learn their strategies and perspectives and approaches. And that's really what I teach now on the corporate side and in the business world is how folks can apply those same principles.
All right, so before we get into all that, we start off, we have drinks with Dwan. So we have a toast. So everyone that listens knows we're just going to hang out. We're going to talk like just two people getting to know each other. So cheers.
Yes, you as well.
Everybody grab your drink. Cheers. And everybody just take a deep breath and stretch off, shake off all the things of the world and just hang out and have fun with us and tune in today and promise you that you'll have a great day. You'll have a great next 45 minutes anyway. But you know what? Yes. You'll just have a great day. I claim great days every day. All right, so you are the wicked smart man. That's what we call our male guests. Our girls are the badass boss babes. So what we like to do is I'm just going to kind of throw you into the wolves today. So What I'd like you to do is tell us just very short about who you are, what you do, how we can reach you. And then we're going to ask questions and see how you got to be this cool, awesome guy that you are today. So we just want to know, what's your deal?
Sounds good. I'm a corporate keynote speaker, the author of 2 books, Raise Your Game and Sustain Your Game. Prior to that, which I've now been doing for 7 years, I was a basketball performance coach and got to work with some really elite level players and coaches. And that's my professional journey. I'm happy to expand on any of that you'd like. So pull on any threads you want.
That's awesome. And then tell everyone how they get a hold of you.
My website is alansteinjr.com, and that is the hub of everything that I have going on. But I'm also at Alan Stein Jr. On YouTube, Instagram, LinkedIn, Twitter. So I'm very easy to find and very accessible and very responsive. So if our conversation strikes a chord with any of your listeners or viewers, I encourage them to shoot me a DM on Instagram or LinkedIn, or check out some of my videos on YouTube or on the website, and would love to keep the conversation going.
I'm going to be doing that today. That's one thing and maybe this is a bad thing, but I don't do like a ton of research on people right before I
Sure.
interview them because I want to like ask questions. Like if I was just meeting you, I want to ask the questions I would meet if I was just meeting you. And
Absolutely.
so
I
I
love
think
that.
a lot of people are like, oh, they send me all their questions. It's like, no, we're not using any of these.
Yeah,
So,
I like the spontaneity. I would prefer it this way as well. So this
but
two
then
people.
once I meet someone and get to know them, I like watch all your stuff, promote all your stuff. I become like a
Awesome.
stalker. So
I love it. Well, this will be a fun conversation. Will you ask away? I'm an open book. Happy to share about anything.
all right, so I love the fact. So tell me about being a basketball coach. Was this in professional, high school, what college? Where was this? When was this happening?
So I was a performance coach, which means I was in charge of strength, conditioning, fitness, nutrition, and mindset. So I didn't actually teach the skills of the game. So there were other coaches to teach shooting and ball handling and passing and defense. So I basically worked on players' bodies and worked on their minds. I was in the private industry. I ran my own business and I specialized mostly at the high school level because that's where I felt I could make the biggest impact on their lives. But I worked at two very renowned high schools here in the Washington, D.C. area that have produced dozens of players currently in the NBA. So that got me some work with Nike and Jordan Brand and USA Basketball. So then I got to work some events for some already established players like Kobe Bryant, LeBron James, Stephen Curry. So I had an opportunity to kind of see the before and the after picture. You know, I got to work with players when they were really young before they made it to the NBA. And then I got to work events for guys that were already in the NBA and really was able to draw on both of those experiences to teach the stuff I teach now.
Yeah, that's really exciting because for me personally, I believe what my I'm sorry, my throat is very scratchy today. I think I drank a bunch of wine yesterday, which I never do. But my husband's out of town. I thought I'm gonna have some wine and watch some movies. And today I woke up, it's like, why is my throat so scratchy? So I apologize. Because I really don't like have that sound. I'm like, all right, I've been drinking water all morning. I've been trying to sing. It's like, well, my voice just keeps cracking. So I apologize, all you listen, it's not normal, my normal voice. But the thing is, Brian or Alan, I don't know why I said that, Alan. I personally believe that mindset is like literally everything.
Agreed.
I mean, I don't care if you're waiting tables or playing basketball or you're a real estate investor. I think if you have a really bad mindset, that just wrecks everything else about your body.
100%. And mindset is something that we can level up through practice and intentionality and awareness. So it's not something that one has to be born with an elite mindset.
Yeah.
It's a skill set, just like any other skill that we're looking to improve. And it's one that I've really been focused on leveling up in my own life, over the last several years in particular. And while it's certainly far from any level of mastery, the progress I've been able to make really has been eye-opening. So for that, I'm thankful. So at least I know I'm headed in the right direction.
You are. How old are you?
I'll be 48 in January.
48. Dang, dude, looking good over there.
Oh, thanks. Yeah, I'm knocking on the door of a half a century coming up. It's kind of crazy.
Honey, I'm on the back end, so I'm
I
gonna
love
turn
it.
65 in February. It's
My
like,
goodness.
how on God's earth am I 65? Like, how did that happen? When did that
Wow.
happen?
Well, you look fantastic and you have a very youthful energy. So whatever you're doing, it's working.
Well, that's the whole Dwanderfulness.
I love it.
See, because I took Dwan and I took wonderful and I made a new word, Dwanderful.
I love it.
Because you got to keep it going. So now I have met, well, I actually own, in addition to doing real estate and stuff, I own a couple of small businesses, a little clothing boutique, a coffee shop, antique store. And I find that there are so many, like more negative people than I ever realized by being in the small businesses and seeing the day in, the day out. I mean, people are just like, I don't even know. They're just so negative. I mean, it's shocking to me because when I go to a real estate event, everyone's like, woohoo, rah, we're here,
Yeah.
And then I go like in my antique mall for a few hours. It's like, the hell's wrong with all the people? So what do you think it is? Or is there something? Or is it just innately we're born with a bad and we have to work on becoming positive? Like, what do you think makes people just generally negative? Is there
Well,
a clue or a system or
as a protective mechanism, I do think we are all wired with a negativity bias. That's an intentionality to help keep us literally alive, is to look for threats and to look for things that are dangerous. I think that has been exponentially heightened, especially in the era of conventional news media and of social media. And they really understand that the way to get eyeballs and the way to get ears and the way to get clicks is through shock and awe of negativity. So I think that's really helped stimulate it. And I do think we all have to be very protective of what we choose to consume, who we choose to listen, read, and watch, and need to understand that the outer world does not automatically create our inner world unless we let it. I want to be fully responsible for my attitude, my mindset, my perspective, my approach, my enthusiasm, my optimism. So I'm a realist and I understand what's going on in the outer world, and I'm informed on circumstances and events and what people say and what people do, but I don't allow those things to dictate my mindset moving forward. And that's I think one of the keys of having a winner's mindset, is being able to detach from the outer world and create that in the inner world. And I've also a big believer that, we kind of get what we accept and we attract what it is that we put out. So if we have the tendency to consistently blame, complain, make excuses, and have, a negative energy, that's the type of people we attract in our world. And then it creates this very vicious cycle. It's, I'm being negative. All the people in my life are being negative. Everyone I read, watch, and listen to on social is being negative. I turn the news on negative. And then I just make the assumption that the world is a negative place because I've insulated myself in this negative bubble. So for me, I try to do the exact opposite to that.
Yeah, I do too. I've got a few people, even in my own family, that just, no matter what, no matter how's your day, like they're always dying or something. I have any money. Just always, like, no matter what, like 30, some of my cousins and stuff, we're all like in our 60s. It's like, how on God's earth have you guys lived your whole life being so negative? Always expecting the worst and always just, I don't know. And I think social media has had a lot to do with that. Because everyone on social media, there's a lot of mean people on social media. So for sure. And I know the last couple of years, I'm just like, I can't believe people write that kind of stuff. Someone will post some really beautiful thing about some great event, and like 80 people will find a way to knock that down. It's like, what the hell's wrong with you guys?
Yeah. Well, it's been my experience.
Why are you like that?
When that happens, that's usually more of a reflection of where they are in their life. It's not the post that you made. It's something going on in their life. And for me, I work really hard to what I call guard my yard and really protect, what's in my immediate surroundings, both literally and metaphorically. So when I find that there's people that are a constant energy drain and energy vampires and people that are constantly negative, I proactively try to spend less and less time with those people, whether that's in person or online. I mean, I go through the people that I follow on social media at least once a month. And if someone is not posting, educational, inspirational, positive, uplifting content, if they're not posting something that adds value to my life or gets me to think differently, then I just choose not to follow them. And if somebody's going to constantly post negative stuff, they have every right to do that. And I have no problem with it, but it doesn't mean I need to be the one to consume it. I mean, I'm very careful and have high discernment with the food that I put in my body. And I have just as high discernment with the content that I'm going to put in between my ears.
Yeah, no, I could not agree more. I have blocked so many people, even some people in my family, because it was always, just always arguing that. And I'm just like, oh my God, I don't know how I can stand to live like that. Like, do you not make yourself crazy being so awful? And I all my friends and everyone that I work with on a regular basis are all very positive. We're all of the mindset that we can conquer the world. And, you just have to keep that, because the negative people, I like that word, energy vampire. I forgot about that word. I haven't heard it for a minute, but that's what they are. They're just like energy vampire. They just suck the life out of you.
Yeah. Well, and I want to make, I'm loving where this conversation is going, but I also want to make a very important disclaimer. And that is, I don't always feel positive and I don't always feel optimistic. I mean, I'm not a robot. I feel frustrated. I feel disappointed. I feel angry. I feel upset. I feel the full palette of emotions and I never resist them. I don't suppress them. I don't ignore them. I allow myself to feel however I'm going to feel, but I don't allow that to direct my behavior. I don't allow that to dictate how I treat others. So I can acknowledge when I'm in a low mood, when I'm feeling lousy, when I'm grumpy, when I'm frustrated, and I'm okay feeling that way, but I never outwardly project that towards others. And I'm certainly not going to make a disparaging or disrespectful comment on social media or send a disparaging email just because I'm in a low mood. So I give myself permission to feel however I feel in that moment, but I don't let that change how I treat others. And I definitely don't weigh others down with any negative thoughts, even if those are what I'm experiencing in the moment.
No, I agree. I mean, there's days I wake up, I don't feel good. I'm just like, oh, I'm just not into whatever's happening. But my husband always says, so I've been married for, oh gosh, 22 years now, I guess. And my husband all the time, he says, you are like the most even-tempered person I've ever met. Because you never blow up, you never get mad, you're always in a good mood. Even when things are awful, you're always in a good mood. He said, how do you do that? I said, well, I don't know. I just choose to do that.
Yeah. Well, it comes down to being thoughtful in our responses. So this is a really important part of mindset, is that acceptance of, as I said earlier, we don't control what goes on in the world around us, but we control our response. And I've worked really hard over the last several years, and I'll keep working hard for the rest of the time I'm on this planet into having thoughtful, meaningful, intentional, purposeful, positive responses. Even when I don't get my preferences, even when someone says or does something that upsets me, I still control my response. And my goal is to always make sure that I'm putting out responses that move me forward and improve my situation. And I'm certainly not batting 1,000. I mean, I'm fallible and flawed just like everyone else.
Yeah, we all
But
do.
generally speaking, if I can more often than not respond intentionally and thoughtfully, then to me, that's how you can maintain a level of positivity and optimism that's fairly unshakable.
And the thing is, you can do that and you can lift other people up too. Like I'm one of those people when I'm in the grocery store line, I compliment the people around me. I'll say like, yeah, I love your hair, your boots, or your shoe. Even if I don't, I'll say something nice to everybody. And I always do that. And people always smile. They're like, wow, thanks. Because they're so shocked to get a compliment from a stranger.
Yeah. I mean, we have the power as human beings to make emotional deposits. And I've always believed, to your point, that a compliment unshared is an act of selfishness. Like if you think something nice about someone, to not tell them is a form of selfishness. So I try and be as free flowing and as liberal as possible with compliments, with praise, with appreciation, with gratitude, because I know how good that feels when people say those things to me. So why would I not want to make as many people feel good as I possibly can?
Yeah. Now I have all my kids do that too. Even my little grandkids. They're like 8, 7. Well, so the two little ones only 4 and 2, so they're not quite there. But even the girls, I say, listen, when you see someone, you're in line or whatever, especially like a cashier, and the line's backed up, and they got all those grouchy people in the line, say something nice. And it just, people's face just light up when you say something nice or give them a compliment, because it's so unexpected, because people in general are negative.
Yeah. Well, this is such a fun conversation. A couple other thoughts come to mind. One is, I firmly believe, and this is my operating system that I see the world through, I try to give everyone the benefit of the doubt. And I try to intentionally assume that everyone is doing the best they can with the skill sets and tools that they have. So if someone is in my world and they're being negative, or they're down in the dumps, or they're like, I'm assuming that they're still trying to do the best that they can. I don't judge them. I don't criticize them. And most importantly, I remember that I'm not privy to all of the information. If someone's being a little bit grouchy, I don't know what's going on in their world. I don't know something. They could have gotten some catastrophic news that morning that has really dampened their spirits. And right now they're just not the best version of their self. So I'm not going to judge them or criticize them for that. I have to remember everyone's doing the best they can, just like I am. And I don't know what's going on in other people's lives and other people's worlds. So to me, leaning in with curiosity and fascination is always a better route than leaning in with judgment and assumption. So even for the people that are constantly negative, if I make a social post and someone writes something disparaging on the social post, I take a deep breath and go, you know what? I don't know what's going on in their world right now. I don't know what triggered that. I know it's not my post that they're upset about. It's something inside of them. And I have compassion for anybody that's hurting or struggling. So it really doesn't bother me.
No, I know. I went, I made a Instagram post about this. I stopped at a gas station not too long ago. And there's this young guy, he's African American. He's probably like 20. He's like, girl, I love your hair. Just like one of those people. And I was like, oh, and he was just so cute. And I was like, oh, I love you. You're so great. And then I just randomly, I said, can I give you a hug? I just felt like this urge. And I hugged him and he burst into tears.
Oh, wow.
And I was like, oh my God, what just happened? He's like, I just really needed a hug today. And I was like, oh my God, thank you. So I felt so like honored that at that very minute. And the funny thing is, I always pay for gas outside. I couldn't get my card to work. So I never go in the store. And so, I mean, it's probably the first time in a year I've gone inside to pay for gas. And he was just so cute, and he was real bubbly and really sweet. And I thought, oh, I just want to get some of that good vibe off him. And he burst into tears, and he's just like, my life's been so hard lately, and you just don't know. I really needed a hug today. And I was like, well, look at that. And that one little minute, it made me cry too, of course. And it changed him too. It's like, all you got to do is just be nice to people.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's the key. We just need to always remember we don't know what's going on in somebody else's world. So give them the benefit of the doubt. I mean, this doesn't mean that we accept or tolerate disrespect or for anybody that's invading in our personal space.
Oh, yeah,
it just simply means as a way to navigate the world, just assume that people are good-hearted and trying to do the best they can. And, if someone doesn't have the emotional integrity or agility to deal with certain problems, then yeah, they're going to get stuck and they're going to project in different ways. And we should be compassionate and empathetic about that, not try to create something adversarial.
No, I agree. So first of all, if a person is a negative person and they don't know they're a negative person, how would someone like that go about changing? I mean, a lot of people are just grinchy, and I don't think they even know they're just grinchy.
Well, and they usually don't because they're surrounded with other grinchy people. So to them, that becomes normal. It's been my experience that when negative people get put into an environment where everybody else is positive and optimistic, and they're the ones that now stick out, then it becomes obvious. It's very similar to if you have someone that has very low standards and is a very mediocre performer, and then they're surrounded by very high achieving, high performing, ambitious people, they're the ones that feel kind of out of place. So, I've always been a believer that awareness is the first step to improvement. And that's because we'll never improve something we're unaware of, and we'll never fix something we're oblivious to. So the first key is for someone to even have an awareness that they're being negative. And really what you need to have people in your life that hold you to a high standard and hold you accountable. If you start blaming, complaining, and making excuses, then instead of people that enable that and accept that, you have people in your life that say, hey, I understand you're a little frustrated right now, but really all you're doing is making an excuse, and that's not going to help you. So let's get in resolution mode and let's find a way to resolve this problem instead of complaining about it or blaming someone else for it. So really, environment plays a massive role for all of us. So until you can put yourself in an environment where other people are positive, where they're optimistic, where they're, have emotional intelligence, where they're ambitious, it's very hard to get out of that cycle.
Yeah, it really is. Now, you mentioned mindset and health and what you put in your bodies. So then obviously you work with people on eating good, taking care, exercising. And what part does that have to play on a person's mindset?
Well, that part from a formal standpoint, that was in my previous life. I mean, for now, most of what I do is corporate keynote speaking. So most of what I'm sharing is not on the physical fitness side. It's more on the emotional fitness side, which we're talking about. But for me personally, yeah, I'm incredibly diligent and disciplined about eating, about exercising, about my mental health, about my sleep. So that kind of resonates in everything that I do. And I'm happy to share with folks about that. But yeah, I mean, to me, self-care needs to be a major pillar in everyone's life, because the only way you can be of service to others in any business or any walk of life is if your bucket is full, is if you're at max capacity. That's the only way you can serve others to that same level. So it's really important that we care enough about ourselves and we care enough about those in our life, whether it's a spouse, our children, our neighbors, members of the church, the community, the school, the business. Yep. We gotta care enough about them to be our best selves. So yep. Self-care is not selfish, it's selfless because it's done in service of others.
No, I agree. I am a big believer. And, I know there's all days probably where we all eat things we shouldn't eat. But when I eat like really bad, because I'm a really good eater, and I eat something really bad or just, I don't know, like, oh, I just feel like eating like a gallon of ice cream today. I feel like crap for like 2 days.
Of course.
Like I feel drained. I feel exhausted. I'm like phlegmy. It's like, golly. So I think, eating and exercising, it all does help with your mindset, because when you can be really positive, but if you really don't take care of your body, you're still going to struggle with just not feeling good.
Absolutely. Well, it will start to erode your confidence. It'll make you feel like you're undisciplined. It will physiologically, it'll erode your mental capacity and your acuity and your ability to focus and your energy levels. So all of these things are intertwined. As human beings, it's really difficult to completely compartmentalize. In order to be our best selves, we need the mental, the physical, the emotional, and the spiritual, if that's appropriate to someone. But all of those things are kind of interwoven together. And it's the same thing with kind of our personal lives and our professional lives. Most people will acknowledge that when things are going well at home, you tend to perform better in the business world. And people also acknowledge that when work is really struggling and stressful, it's hard not to drag that into your relationship or into your home life. And that's because we're human beings. We're not robots. So all of this stuff is very, very holistic, and it's all woven together, which is why I'm constantly teaching and preaching to folks that, yes, going for a walk and eating a healthy breakfast will actually make your company more profitable, because you'll be a better version of yourself when you're leading your company.
It's funny. You'll see when I'll follow you. If you'll follow me back on Instagram, I have something I call it the 5 slices of pie, because everybody wants like a piece of the American pie. So I give tips on the 5 things I feel are the most important, which is financial, spiritual, physical, mental, and your family and friends. And that kind of makes us who we are. And when one slice of your pie is out of whack, it messes up the other slices. And the only way to really have balance is to always think about like your whole self as a whole, as pieces of a pie that make a whole pie. So I put up a video every day. So, okay, guys, today's slice of pie, and we talk about whatever, financial, spiritual, physical, mental, and family and friends, because when anything gets really out of whack, or you're too focused on like, I got to make money, other things, suffer. Or if you're just like spiritually, you're just, all over the place. It's like, well, then you suffer. And if you eat crappy, then you suffer. And if you don't exercise and take care of your body, then you suffer. And if you hate all your family and friends and are fighting with people all the time, you're like suffering all the time. So it's like, get those 5 things going. And if people don't fit in and they're whatever, too negative or too this or too that, then sometimes you just have to get rid of toxic people.
100%. Absolutely. I love that pie analogy.
Yeah, so that's so that's why I go, today's slice of pie, and I talk about something, because it's really important because I find, as in the real estate side, people really focus on, I want to be a millionaire, I want to make money, how can I make money the fastest? And yet they're driving through McDonald's every day, and they're super overweight, and they're fighting with their spouse at home. It's like, well, this stuff is keeping you from being successful over here on this side. So you need to work on all of that.
Absolutely. We need to be able to raise that baseline. A lot of people always talk about raising the ceiling, the proverbial ceiling. But in essence, what we need to do is raise the floor. And when we raise the floor, it gives us a better vantage point and puts us closer to the ceiling anyway. And we raise the floor by doing all of these things that you're saying. I mean, those 5 slices of the pie, that's the foundation to which everything else is built. So you've got to have those things in order. And I fully acknowledge that achieving true balance is really challenging to do. I mean, at different times in our life we have different seasons, and there'll be sometimes, there'll be some points in your life where some of those slices of pie are really thriving and a little more fluid, and a couple other ones are a little bit harder. And then 3-4 years later, those could be completely reversed. So we have to lean into that. It's more about an awareness and an intentionality to focus on those 5 slices and to, devote the proper energy and attention to them to make them the best that they can be, but also realize we have to give ourselves the space and the grace and the compassion that it's never going to be a perfect pie. It's never going to have perfect slices. We're going to constantly ebb and flow, and we have to be okay with that.
I think if all my slices were exactly equal and all up here all on the same day, I don't think I'd know what to do with myself. It's like, what would I work on if everything was perfect?
Very true.
So if a person is maybe more of a negative type and they're starting to become self-aware, what do you have some advice, like something that they could hear this today and go, now that I hear Alan talking, I'm kind of a grinchy sort of person. I'm a little bit negative now, because like you said, they have to become aware first. You can't help anybody change anything until they actually become aware that that's a problem. So once someone is like just barely on the precipice of knowing, okay, I heard that, I do complain a lot, maybe I am a little grinchy, what should they do first?
Well, my overarching approach to mindset is very basic. It's not easy, but it's basic. And that is making a conscious commitment to simply doing the best I can with what I have wherever I am. That's it. I want to do the best I can with what I have wherever I am. Now, the what I have and the wherever I am is constantly changing because the world's constantly changing. But the consistent part, or the constant, is going to be me in that approach. And I mentioned earlier that trilogy of behaviors that really feeds negativity and undermines our performance and fulfillment, which is blaming, complaining, and making excuses. Well, if your entire focus is on just doing the best you can with what you have wherever you are, then blaming, complaining, and making excuses can't fit into that equation. So to me, that's the actual start. And just acknowledge that it's sometimes in your life you're in better places and you have more tools and more resources, and other times you don't. And being okay with your effort and your attitude with what you put forward is the most important part. And to me, this is a very liberating and empowering mindset, because I'm no longer at the mercy of the outer world. Like circumstances, events, things will change, but I'm the constant, and my constant is focusing on my own attitude and my own effort. And that means I'm always in control. And to me, that is really empowering and liberating.
So do you have like a book or a recommendation, or someone says, you know what, I want to have a positive mindset? So did they Google it? Did they buy a book? Did they go to you? How does someone begin day one of, I realize I'm negative and I don't want to be? What is an actual thing they can do or say or tell themselves that can start the transition?
I'm a huge believer that one of the best questions we can ask ourselves when we're not getting the result we want, or we're not living the life we want, is having a mindset of extreme ownership and asking yourself, how am I complicit in being in this situation? So the first thing to do is say, if I'm going to identify and acknowledge that I'm negative right now, I need to ask myself, how am I complicit in my negativity? So I'm not going to blame, complain, or make excuses on why I'm negative. I'm going to say, what is it that I'm doing that's adding to my negativity? And I'm going to take an inventory. And maybe I say, well, the 3 people I spend the most time with are really negative. The people that I follow on social media are really negative. The news channels that I choose to watch at night are really negative. And now you have an awareness of how you're complicit in what's contributing to your negativity. And now you can slowly try to unwind that. You can slowly say, I'm going to start spending more time with so-and-so because they're more positive, or I'm going to unfollow these 3 people and I'm going to start listening and reading and watching these other people, or I'm going to take a fast from watching traditional news, and I'm going to watch something inspirational or educational on YouTube instead. So we get to control, the inputs. because
Yeah.
the inputs are what create the outputs. So if you find that you're being negative, that is your output, you need to look backwards and reverse engineer and figure out what are the inputs that are creating that and siphon those off.
I love it. When I was in my 20s, I was living in South Florida, and I used to go to all those Tony Robbins, the big rah-rah seminars. And I remember after I went to the first one, I was like, oh my gosh, everyone in here is like, it's like electric. It's so electric in there. And I thought, I want to be like those people on that stage. How do I become that? I mean, I didn't even go for like, how do I be a better person? I'm like, how do I become that one on the stage? I want to be that person.
I love
So
it.
I started reading a lot of books. And at the time, in my car, we just had radios back in the day. We didn't even have cassettes or CD players. I think maybe cassettes. There was a motivational radio station that during drive time would just play these clips from people like Zig Ziglar and Les Brown and just all the people. And I started listening to that. And I'm telling you, it doesn't take long before you really start changing the way you think because of what you are listening to. And I noticed a really big difference in my life and the people. And I didn't really realize like, oh, I'm becoming a positive person, because I was always positive. But I started to realize I was becoming like so excited about everything. And I could see the change. But I don't think at the time I had the words to put into what was exactly happening. I was just like, gosh, these people, they're so great. I feel so motivated. I want to go work out. I want to do this. I want to do that. How do I become that person? I want to be a speaker. How do I do that?
Yeah, if most people would make that trade, if to me the two spots on the bookends of the day that infiltrate most people's mental space are watching the evening news on TV and immediately jumping on social media first thing in the morning, especially if you're not having very high discernment with who you follow. So we don't want to we don't want the bookends of our day, to have that type of negativity infiltrate us. So if you can trade that out, if someone were to turn off the evening news and instead play great clips from, Jim Rohn or Les Brown or Brian Tracy or Zig Ziglar or Tony Robbins, any of those titans, it would absolutely change their mindset, and it wouldn't take long to do. And then if everyone will go through and weed the garden on social media and literally go through every single person you follow and ask yourself, is this person positive and are they adding value to my life? And unfollow and unsubscribe anyone that's not, because you got to, as I said before, you got to guard your yard.
You do. I like that term, guard your yard. That's a really good term. I'm going to start telling people, listen, I want you to guard your yard. That is can I use that term? And I'm going to,
sure can. Help
I'll give you credit back to it. But that is a good term, because people, they don't guard. They just, like they're out, they're with their friends or whatever, in a bar, whatever they're doing. And there's all these other people around though. But I feel like people give off like that negative energy. Like that stuff, I don't want that stuff like jumping on me, It's like, listen, get that demon off me. I don't want any of that stuff over here. So I'm always putting a hedge of protection around myself and just praying for other people and praying for everything to be good. And I spend a lot of time trying to keep any negative, anything, business, people, food, life, just out of my house. Like this, my body's my house, my body's my temple, and I don't want anything bad going in there.
Agreed. Well said.
So I don't know. That's kind of my body is my temple sort of thing. So now I have been known to be very debaucherous, drink way too much, have shots, eat stuff I shouldn't do. But then I was like, for 3 days or 2 days, I'm like, God, I just don't feel good. Like, why did I do that? So now I'm sort of just like, nah, I don't. Do you want to, have drugs? Like, no, not really. I don't want to do that. I don't want to do that. I don't want to go to a club. I don't want to do any of that stuff. It's like, I'm just going to like hang out with my husband.
Love it.
So let's jump tracks a little bit. What's your favorite band of all time?
They're not traditional bands, because I'm a big hip hop fan, old school hip hop in particular. So most of my favorite artists and groups are kind of in the hip hop genre. I'm slowly, as I'm getting older, kind of broadening my horizons and really kind of enjoy some country music now, variety of different. So I don't really have an
all-time
you gotta
have a favorite. Band. Who's your favorite hip hop of all time? You gotta have.
Hip hop favorite artist, it's probably Eminem or Jay-Z.
I am actually a huge fan of old hip hop too, because when my daughter was born in '88, so like in the '90s when all that music kind of started coming out, I was like, wow, Because before that, I was all into disco. So it's like, I was like, hey, this is like, you can dance to this. This has got good beat.
Wow.
I like that. I like the rhymes. I'm liking this. And so I have one of my playlists is like all the old school hip hop, the whole entire playlist. My husband's like, how do you listen to that music? I'm like, that music has the best beat. It's great. I
Yeah.
love it. And people are always surprised about that. It's like, you like it? I'm like, now the rap today, like the really kind of nasty rap, it's like with all the cussing, it's like
Yeah.
But the old hip hop, it was really great. It was like a great new music.
It's an incredible art form for
If you can
sure.
dance to it, I like it.
Love it.
I can even line dance. So I've even learned the country because I like to go with my mom. My mom's still 87. She still goes line dancing. So it's like, who would have thought?
Nice.
What's your favorite food?
I tend to skew towards healthier things. I've really increased that palate. I'm a big breakfast guy, so I love granola. I love chia seed pudding. I love a good omelet. I love avocado toast. But if I had to pick one singular food or genre, I'd probably go with sushi. I
Oh,
love sushi.
me too. Not that many people say sushi. I'm like, sushi is like the best food on the face of the earth. I
Yeah,
feel
and it's
like I
pretty
could eat it
versatile.
every day. It's so good. I love it. The rolls, the food, the sushi. My husband doesn't like it, but I've got him up to California rolls. So
There
he'll
you
get
go.
California right there. I'm eating sushi. It's like,
It's a
okay,
good start.
let's call it that. I'm over here with like, sashimi and all the right. Oh my God, how do you eat that? I'm like, it's delicious. What's your favorite time? What's your favorite part of the day?
Oh, early morning by far. 6 to 10 a.m. by far.
And what do you do between 6 and 10?
That's when I do most of my productive work, whether it's my physical exercise or if I'm working on a project. Anytime I'm speaking at an event, I like to be the opener. I like to be one of the first speakers. It's just when I have my most energy. It's when I have my best mental focus and acuity. Yeah, I'm not good for much after 9 or 10 p.m. at night. So, I usually go to bed pretty early and I naturally wake up pretty early. And ever since I was a child, I've really embraced and loved early mornings.
That's nice. It's fun because everyone has a favorite time of their day, and they're all for so many various reasons. But I talk to a lot of people. Like, oh, I get up at like 4 o'clock and exercise, and in my mind, I'm thinking like, never catching me up at 4 o'clock exercise. But I appreciate that they do it. It's like, hey, listen, if you love that, you need to do that. That sounds amazing for you. But
Absolutely.
the morning does set your day. I don't get on my social media. I get up. I eat. I do. I'm a big breakfast person too. I get up. I have a nice breakfast, and I do my Bible study and just whatever I need to do, work out or whatever I'm doing. Then I pick because once you pick up your phone, I feel like you're like sucked into a black hole for the rest of the day. And it's easy to get in, and then all of a sudden you're like, shoot, it's 7 o'clock at night. What the heck happened to my day today?
Yeah, exactly.
Anything. Okay, so one more time, tell everybody. So I took some notes. So I kind of like to do a little summary. So we're
Okay.
gonna see Alan Stein Jr. See if we picked up a little bit of information about you today. So you do corporate speaking, coaching. Start off as a basketball coach. You do the mindset, the health, the bodies. Worked with high school, which is I think where people really do need a lot of help because those are really formidable years. There's a lot of peer pressure. There's a lot of everything. And if you don't make it through that, you've just got a longer road ahead of you. You like to guard your yard, which I love. You don't you don't like to have energy vampires around you, which I love that too. It's like I used to use that word. I forgot. I'm gonna start using it again. 48, amazing shape. Take good care of yourself. Mostly though, you like to go speak at corporate events and just teach people about just building all the areas of their life, having a well-bounded, and I think starting with mindset is the most important. And commitment, that was your tip for like, if someone's going to start making a change, they have to make a commitment. You have to commit to the move. You're like M&M, breakfast is your big thing, but sushi. And you like it early in the morning.
Perfect summary. You nailed it.
Is that a little bit about Alan Stein Jr.?
That is a little bit about Alan Stein Jr. If anybody
I know,
wants more,
folks, it's only
they
a
can go to the
little, but
website.
y'all have all of his socials. You have all get a hold of him. I think you should get in touch. I feel like no matter how positive of a person that you think you are, I think I am, or you think you are, I think when you feel like, oh yeah, I'm the most positive person, there's nothing else for me to learn, then that's like going back downhill on the slope.
Agreed.
You have to always, you can never be, you just can never have like too many great things rolling through your brain.
Agreed. Well said. Yeah. Always have a student mentality. That's what I try and live by.
I do too. I know I've been investing in real estate for like 35 years. So sometimes I'll have a guest on and I'll be like, hey, I did not know that. So I get so excited to learn something new because it's not that I've done it all and I know it all, but when you've been doing something for a long time, when you learn something new, it's like, wow, that's really exciting. This is
Yeah.
something new and fun. Have
Exactly.
you written books? Are those your books behind you?
They are, yeah. The first one's called Raise Your Game, High Performance Secrets from the Best of the Best. And my follow-up book was called Sustain Your Game, High Performance Keys to Manage Stress, Avoid Stagnation, and Beat Burnout. Folks can get those on Amazon or Audible or wherever they like to get their books and audiobooks.
Nice. I'm going to read the first one there, Raise Your Game. I always love to
Cool.
read new books. Did you ever read that book, Relentless?
Yeah, by Tim Grover, absolutely.
Yeah, my husband listened to that on audiobook and he won't read for nothing, but he'll listen to anything on audiobook. And as I started listening to that book, I was like, you know what? I want to listen to that book with you. I was like,
Yeah,
man, that was like a really like that's a hardcore book about being like a
yeah.
high achiever. And I was like, dang, that guy like is like hard in the paint on his ideas. But it was really interesting because there are like the leaders and the coolers and the other people, but we should all strive to be the actual best version of ourselves that we can possibly be. So folks, I'm going to ask you a couple things. First, do you have a podcast, Alan?
I do, called the Raise Your Game Show.
Okay. So you'll be having me on as a guest.
Sounds good.
Okay. Y'all heard that. So go listen to the Raise Your Game Show. I'm sure it's fantastic. And in fact, I'm going to start listening to it myself now. Also, find him on social media, find me on social media. Go to dwanderful.com and opt in and get a free Flip Your Way to a Fortune real estate investing program. And for all of us that do podcasts, we always ask you, I ask if you had a good time, if you laughed, if you smiled, if you learned something, just anything at all, go and subscribe and leave a 5-star review. Podcasts are a lot of work. They are definitely a labor of love. And we feel edified when you go and leave a 5-star review and say, hey, Alan was great. Dwan was great. This was great. So we help you and we ask you to do the same in return. So one last question. I want you to give me a word of wisdom, but it can only be a single word, a word of wisdom, one word.
Intentional.
I love that word. So everybody knows that when they hear the word of the week, this is our word of the week in the Dwanderful world now, is intentional. So what does intentional mean to you?
Being very thoughtful in your responses to everything that happens in your life.
Okay, so everybody, that's it. Intentional means being thoughtful in all the areas of your life. Is that right?
That is correct. You nailed it.
All right, so everyone this week is going to be working on being intentional. So I always like to have people just leave a word of wisdom because it makes people, because like you did, you had to look up, you have to think for a minute, like only one word. I have a whole sentence. I just don't want to put it into a single word. And then I like to find out what that word means to you to give people who may not know what intentional means, to give them a place to start.
Perfect. I love
With
it.
your word. So listen, you are great. You're awesome. I'm so happy and thankful I got a chance to meet you today. And seriously, though, you don't have to have me on your show, but I got some pretty good motivational skills myself. So I would be an awesome asset to your tribe. And everyone grab his books and be intentional. And that's really intentional. Really is a great word. Because we all want to do things, we think about doing things, but then if you don't actually make the intent to make the commitment and keep going, nothing ever really changes. And then a month later, 2 months later, you're like, oh, I'm back where I started from. Well, that's because you weren't intentional.
Well said. Well, this was a
Right?
fun conversation. It was so nice to meet you.
It was for you too. So after we stop recording, just hang on for 1 second. All right, so everybody, thank you for being on the most wonderful real estate podcast ever. And here we talk about everything. We talk about mind, spirit, body, soul, finances, real estate. We talk about it all because that's what makes us who we are. So we'll be back next week, same bat time, same bat channel. And remember that the truth is in the red letters. All right, everybody. Ciao. Thank you. Alan, thank you. Y'all make it a great week.